Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 140 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dotson, and welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to continue on our Fundamentals of Marksmanship series, and we're going to be talking about logbooks, the importance of record keeping, and why this is probably one of the most important tools you could have in your bag and something that you should absolutely keep for your rifle if you truly want to become a great marksman and you want to be the best shooter that you can be. So without further ado, this is a good one. Here we go. All right, before we get started, I would like to say a quick thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is a proud sponsor of the show and maker of world-class triggers. They make them for all makes and models, a simple, safe roller bearing system that is easy to use, end-user installation, and end-user adjustable. So if you want to upgrade your rifle, put a good trigger in it, and if you want to do that, put the best in, and we recommend TriggerTech. You can learn more about TriggerTech over at triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank Wolf Precision's online long-range shooting school, where you can attend a world-class long-range shooting school from the convenience of your own home. So if you want to take a class and become the best shooter that you can be, stop over to wolfprecision.net and enjoy Wolf Precision's online long-range shooting school that now has almost 10 hours of video instruction posted. So you can learn more at wolfprecision.net. That's wolfprecision.net today. So this ties right into our online long-range shooting school and where we're at in recording our sessions. So we are in session 2 or season 2, and we're on episode 32. So we've got 32 videos of content posted with nearly 10 hours of instructions. So it's really turning out to be a really incredible piece of art, and hopefully something that will just have a long lifespan of just sharing everything that we do here at the shooting school and being able to put that out there for people to just enjoy from the comfort of their own home and not have to travel the whole way in and have all the expenses of coming in and attending the class here. Now, don't get me wrong, we hold classes here every year, and we enjoy them. They're one of our favorite things to do, but it's not always the right time and of course, not always the right place for students to get in here. So COVID had taught us a lot on remote instructions, and this was one of those things that hopefully the school might even outlive me and be up there as just great content and maybe even be a little bit timeless on the fundamentals of marksmanship. So we're talking about in this particular video that we just shot, and I want to cover it here on the podcast, and then we have a free giveaway at the end of the podcast here on one of our logbooks. But you know, we did a newsletter yesterday we sent out, and just with some different updates. And in the newsletter, I wrote a little blog about the importance of a logbook. And I posted up a picture of a table with all of this shooting equipment and chronographs and wind meters and all of these things. And I said in the picture, you know, what do you think the most important piece of equipment to a shooter is besides the rifle? And the answer was the logbook. And I think in almost all the years of shooting and spending time with shooters and really getting them to understand how they have to really master the rifle and spend time with it and learn all of these quirks and things you're going to have to sort out as you keep working with it, not just over days or weeks or months, but years, and keeping good records of it. I just can't tell you how important that is if you really want to become a great marksman. And I often say that the logbook is one of the least underappreciated and underestimated as to the value to the shooter. So in this podcast, I want to talk a little bit about it since we've been talking about the Fundamentals of Marksmanship series. This is something that you should have in your kit. Now, of course, we made our own, and we've had it here for close to 20 years, just simply because 20 years ago there wasn't a lot of logbooks to choose from, and a lot of the military logbooks just didn't fit what we needed it to do. So we made our own. It's printed on cardstock, and we sell them here at the school all the time. We'll have them on our new online store here coming out shortly. So if you log in anytime after February 7th, if you'd like a logbook and you like our design, you can purchase it there at our online store, and we'll send you one. Be glad and certainly appreciate the business. But why do you want to keep it? I always joke around at the shooting school and say that rifles can have more issues than Ellen DeGeneres in a Chippendales nightclub. There are things that you need to know about your rifle on a totally different level if you're doing more than just going out and occasionally varmint hunting out to 200 or 300 yards, or hunting deer in PA here where we're our average shot is 100 or 150 yards. When you really are going to get into competitive shooting, or you're going to really start stepping that distance out, all of this stuff matters. So, for example, we talked about in the video the cold bore shot and the follow-up shot and how important they are. And here at the shooting school, it's amazing. Like, this would be day 2 of our 3-day school. We'd be talking about this right out of the gate. And believe it or not, it can take over an hour in the classroom, because we're going to get into a bunch of questions, because people are often fascinated about the things that they learn when they start keeping records on rifles. So, for example, the cold bore shot and follow-up shot, although it originally was designed to document whether or not the rifle could hit where it was aimed at on the first shot in the same place it will on the second shot. So we call it a cold bore shot issue. And that happens for several different reasons, and some you just can't explain. You're a half-inch low and left on your first shot out of the gun for the first shot of the day, and everything else goes into bullseye. That's documented to be an issue. It's been documented to be issues. It's not on every rifle, and it's not always a half-inch low and left. But it's been documented many times that there are rifles that have these issues, and you need to know. If you're a half-inch low and left in the first shot, and of course, if you don't know to look for this stuff and you don't know to record these things, yeah, I'm always a little low and to the left. The next shot goes into bullseye. You don't give it any more thought, right? When you take that cold bore shot at 1,000 yards, you're now 5 inches low and 5 inches left. And if you're hunting, that's a bad shot. If you're in a match, that could be a miss. And a lot of the match directors, a lot of the people that shoot a lot, know that most people do not know if they have a cold bore shot issue, and most don't know what it is if they do have one. And so they'll intentionally set the first shots of the day at really long or really small targets at distance. That way, if you don't know it, you don't know your rifle has this issue, or you don't know what it is, there's a good chance that a lot of people in that match are going to drop points right out of the gate just simply because they didn't know something like this. So I haven't had the issue in quite a long time. We use Krieger barrels and we use IBI barrels for our carbons. And to be honest with you, when you get up to that level where they're double stress relieved and they're really high-end quality steel, they're really made to that totally crazy different level. I mean, let's face it, a $350 or $400 Krieger barrel costs as much as some rifles that you can purchase right now, right? So you're getting some things when you buy barrels at that level. And I haven't had a cold bore shot issue in probably over a decade. I mean, that's just me being honest. I think I can't even think back in the late 2000s, maybe a 308. I know we had one factory gun that walked, so we were doing a lot of video work. This is a good story. So we talk about why we keep logbooks, and I'm going to dive into the logbook here in a minute and just talk about some of the things if you make your own, things you want to keep track of. We got a rifle, and I don't want to say who because it wouldn't be fair to say that this speaks for the whole brand, and because it probably doesn't, because we had other rifles by this company and they shot great, right? We had a rifle and barrel combination come in for testing, and we were using it to do some video work, and it was in 308. And I remember specifically taking it to the range and watching it walk up the paper from the time it was cold until we got about 6, 7, 8 rounds through it. And I thought it was fascinating, right? And then it stayed. Like when I was shooting, man, I zeroed the gun out. It was fine. The next time I went to the range, first cold bore shot was way low and left, and it walked its way right up to that zero again, right, when the gun got hot. And I don't want to put an exact inch on it because I'd have to go back through, we're talking like 20-some years ago, and I don't even know if I have that logbook because we don't shoot those rifles anymore, right? But it was like 5 to 7 inches. It was crazy. It was stunning, actually. And it's one of those things that we went back and did it again, and did it again, and did it again, and it did it the same way every single time. We actually contacted the manufacturer with the data, and they were like, oh, some things are done to it that might have caused that, and just might be a lot of extra stress in the barrel. And we'll share with you some video of things that these major manufacturers do with barrels that just will make you just take your breath away, right? But it got replaced. We've got another barrel, and it shot fine. But that was a perfect example that we kept records right out of the gate on this rifle, and it showed its ugly head up when we were zeroing it, it was like, well, why does it keep walking up? We keep bringing it down. We keep bringing it down. And then it settled in. Okay, maybe the barrel's breaking in. Maybe something else odd going on. Go through, tighten everything up. But the second time we took it to the range, there it is again. We're way low left. Let's not adjust anything this time. Let's keep shooting it. And you watch the bullets rise up and go to the center of the target. Did it again. Didn't change anything. Next time we went to the range, next week, whatever it was, it shot and it was way low and left, and it walked right back up to bullseye after about 5 to 7 rounds, 8 rounds. So we keep this not because of the extreme ends of what that rifle that I had in 308 was, but rifles before it. So I had a 308 before that had about, maybe a little bit less than half a minute low and left. And it was where its cold bore shot went. So we keep records and logbooks for many different reasons. And let me just share a couple of things that you should have written in your logbook every time you go to the range. And when you're picking out a logbook, these are areas you want to look for to be able to write this data in. So the first thing I always like to write in the logbook, of course, we want to be able to write the current weather conditions for that day. Think of barometric pressure, density, altitude, heat, height, humidity, location, where you're at, what you're doing, wind and wind directions. Just keep some general notes, right, for that day. But I always keep a running round count. Think of like a rolling checkbook. So every time I shoot, I take that day's round count, I add it to the previous round count, which is total for the gun, and then I write that number on the page. So let's just say I shot 20 rounds today. I flipped back through my logbook the previous day. My rifle sat at 880 rounds. So I take the previous round count of 880. I add today's round count to it. Now I'm at 900. The next time I shoot, I will take that round count and add it to 900. And now I know I'm setting at 900 and whatever rounds, 950. This is really important for several different reasons. Right out of the gate, it's going to save you from actually replacing your barrel earlier than you think. We get lots of customers over the years that have sent back rifles that was like, hey, my rifle's still shooting good, but I think my round count's getting up there. I would like to replace it and get another barrel put on it, just in case. I don't want it to go south in the middle of the shooting season. So I'll look over the barrel, I always do, and I'll call the customer up and I'll say, hey, look, it looks like you've only got half this round count through it. I mean, how many rounds you got through it? And they're like, well, I'm thinking I got 2,000 to 3,000 rounds through the barrel. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, you might have another 1,000, 1,500 rounds of barrel life left. It doesn't look that bad, And then I'll ask them, did you keep records of this round count, or are you sort of guesstimating? And the answer 90% of the time is, well, I'm sort of guesstimating. I think I'm pretty close. And I'll ask them, so you sure you want me to replace this barrel? And they're like, yeah, sure. Let's just replace it. It's there. So I'll put a new barrel on it, and it's good for business. Don't get me wrong. I really appreciate the opportunity to put a new barrel on somebody's rifle. It's what keeps the lights on. But at the same time, I really think in some ways they're doing it faster than they should have, that barrel might have lasted them the rest of the year. And that because they didn't keep good records, they're worried at what the round count really is. They just don't know. And so they just don't know what they don't know, and so they'll preemptively get rid of it and replace it, and end of story. So I wind up with a bunch of barrels here that really aren't shot out, and sometimes we'll just save them for test barrels for something. If we get a 30 cal and it looks in pretty good shape, the customer wants it replaced. If the customer wants it back, I'll gladly send it to them. But a lot of times they're like, just swap it out and, send me the new one. And so we'll send them the new one, and I'll throw the old 30 cal on the shelf, and it might sat there for 7 years, and all of a sudden we'll be like, hey, we're messing with a new cartridge. Let's see if we got any old 30 cal barrels back there we can spin up, and we'll use it for a test barrel or something like that. So we don't just throw them away all the time. Sometimes we'll use them for other things in house, which is nice. But again, it comes at the expense of the customer, prematurely getting rid of the barrel. The other thing we want to keep written in here is our load data. I mean, in today's day and age, when you're keeping a logbook, you should always keep a load data for your rifle. And as you work with new loads, keep written documents as to what your final load was, what your speeds were. And that way, 10 years from now, you get back into that caliber again. Like for me, I loved the 260 when I grew up shooting. And I have all my load data for the 260 from when I was shooting it. And if for whatever reason I decided to go back and start running a 260 again, I could go back and pull out all this great information on the bullets and the powders and, all this stuff. Because let's face it, in today's market, we might have to shoot powder that's less than perfect or something that's not exactly what we're looking for, just simply because we can't find our go-to powder, right? So it's nice to keep those records and just keep them forever. And the other thing I want to recommend before I continue on is just make sure you put a logbook cover. And so we use Triad Tactical to put over our logbooks, and they're all in different colors. So when you buy a logbook cover, it's meant to keep everything together in your logbook, and so it doesn't get wet in the rain, all that stuff. But make sure if you buy covers, buy them in different colors, and that way it's color coded. So for example, black would be your 223, green would be your 6.5 by 47, whatever it's going to be. But don't just buy like 5 black covers and put them in your logbooks and then throw your logbooks in your safe, because you're going to leave one day and grab the wrong logbook. And that doesn't help you much when you get to the match. Wrong dope, wrong rifle, everything, bad. So we color code our logbooks to the caliber. That way, when I reach in and grab a logbook, I know exactly which one I'm looking for because it's the color that I'm looking for, right? The other information that you want to keep in your logbook that's really important, right? And this is you learning your rifle, is we want to write in there not just our round count totals. We want to write in there our zero changes. So one of the reasons we keep a logbook is over time, things that are like little quirks with the rifle or problems start to reveal themselves, but they only reveal themselves if you keep good written records. So for example, every time you go to the range, you're doing a zero shot, a cold bore shot, doing a little bit of work at 100 yards, and you're going out and shooting at distance, right? And then the next time you go back to the range, the next day, next week, whatever, you're 2 or 3 tenths off at 100 yards or a half a minute. And so you re-zero, and then you shoot the rest of the day. And then the next time, you're a quarter or half a minute off in a different direction. Most people don't think about that too much, right? I'm just a little off. It's no big deal. Maybe it's me. But that said, if you keep a logbook and you write these changes in, so I always write if I make 0 changes in my logbook, this could be a representation of a bad scope that's either not tracking or not coming back to the perfect 0 when you come back to 100 yards. If I start seeing this on a regular basis, there's something wrong. That should not happen. The school guns here come back to 100-yard 0 every single day, and they're there the next day when we start shooting again. So if you find yourself chasing that 0 every time you're going to the range, it's throwing a red flag up in the air, and if you know what you're looking for, then you know that, oh man, hey, this is like 3 or 4 times now. Now I'm going to start seriously looking at it. When I go to the range, I'm going to be hyper-focused that I'm sharp. Fundamentally, I'm going to shoot at 100 yards and my 0's off again. I'm going to start looking at things in a way that I'm going to be looking for suspects. I'm going to be, is it the scope? I'm going to get rid of that scope and put another scope on it that's known, like maybe off of one of my other rifles that just tracks, right? And see if that goes away. So I'm going to start A-Bing some things to see if I can't find where this problem's at, because it's not supposed to do that, and it shouldn't. And this is one of the benefits of having a logbook. The other thing that you want to write in there is your dope. So as you're working with your rifle, we all print out this click chart, or we use the Hornady Ford-Off program, and we think that it's like that magic 8-ball that you shake it and ask a question, and it gives you the number, right? It's magical. You shake it, okay, what's my dope for 700 yards? Bingo, there it is. It's 5.7 mils. The problem is it's using all these calculations, but each rifle is a fingerprint. Your rifle is as unique as your fingerprint. And just because that's what the average rifle needs with that speed, with that bullet, doesn't mean that's what your rifle needs. And you need to keep written documents of this, and then you need to modify your click chart accordingly. This is important. This is why we keep a logbook. The other thing you want to keep in mind, too, when you're working with this is not just your dope, right? So we're going to be writing down all of our dope, but then our chronograph speeds. Sometimes I think students are surprised when we tell them that, like, when you buy a brand new rifle or you get a brand new barrel, you chronograph right out of the gate, you get a click chart, you're off to the races, but little do people know that after about 150 to 200 rounds, your barrel breaks in, and you actually pick up speed. So you could actually pick up somewhere between 20 and 100 feet per second once the barrel seasons or breaks in. So most of your rifle barrels, right around 150 to 200 rounds, especially if they're of good quality, will start to break in a little bit. You're going to get a gift. It's a freebie. And once you get it, it stays. So right about 150, 200 rounds, you should be re-chronographing your rifle and documenting your new speeds. Now, some of it might be because you're now got once fired brass, you got more case volume, you've got other things. But truthfully, your barrel, all the little microscopic, scratches and little imperfections are being filled in. And it's like seasoning cast iron, right? It's not the same. It's not like seasoning cast iron, but you get the concept that it's going to break in a little bit. It's going to smooth out a little bit, and you're going to get the speed. And if you don't know, and you don't know to keep record, hey, I'm sitting at 150 or 170 rounds, I better re-chronograph this to see what kind of speeds I'm picking up, then, you don't know. And you're going to go to a match and you're going to shoot over everything at distance and be wondering, what the hell is going on? I thought this thing was running perfect, and we have friends that have still to this day can fall victim to this. So we had a good friend of ours that's a retired scout sniper, and he runs his own business, of course, and he went to a match with a new barrel. And when I talked to him after the match, and I was like, hey, how did the match go? And he goes, you won't believe what I did. He said, the 308 you built me? And I'm like, yeah. He said, yeah. He said, I didn't realize that I had hardly no rounds through the gun, and about halfway through the 2-day match, I started shooting over stuff. My barrel broke in. And, he re-chronographed his rifle when he got home, and he did. He picked up, whatever, 30, 40, 50 feet, 60 feet per second. But at distance, that'll push you over top of a small target. So you need to know, and this is where you keep good records. Hey, I'm at this round count. I better keep an eye on my speeds and re-chronograph it and write it in your logbook, right? So there are other things we would use the logbook for besides, the doping part of it. All of our load data, checking action screws, scope rings and bases. Like for example, if your action screws loosen up and it catches you off guard, like you go to turn them and they're loose, I would mark that in my logbook. I would tighten it to spec, 45 or 55, 65 inch-pounds, whatever it's supposed to be. And then I would be checking it periodically. And if they loosen up again, that's a problem. I mark it in my logbook. And then I would be using some gunsmithing Loctite on that to make sure that doesn't happen. But most people won't keep records of this stuff. But it'll tell you over time that these quirks and these weird things are going to happen. You're going to be able to adjust them, but you're going to be able to watch for them. And then they're going to reveal themselves over time. And that's the big thing. Now, be cautious in a logbook that you don't write every single shot that you shoot every time, because if you write down in your logbook every shot you shoot for the rest of your life, you wind up with a Webster-style dictionary logbook that you can't find anything important in. So I always say in the end, only write things that are super important in your logbook. So if you look in any of my logbooks, you would be shocked, that I've got a running round count. I know when it was last cleaned. I always mark on my logbook, which here again, I'm going to throw this out there. One of the big things that you should be writing in your logbook is the round count when you cleaned it last and the date. So our rifles can run 200-300 rounds between cleanings and beyond that, really, without suffering any big accuracy loss. And so I write down in there, hey, today's February 2nd. I cleaned my rifle. I'm going to write my round count in, then date. And that way, as the next couple weeks tick by and I'm going out and shooting, I can always go back and say, hey, look, I've got X amount of rounds through the guns now. I wonder when the last time I cleaned it is. I can flip back through the pages and be like, oh, man, I've got 300 rounds through this gun. I better give it a good scrubbing. Or I'm going to look back through and say, I only got 80 rounds through. I'm just going to give it a wipe down and we're going to keep shooting, right? Keeps you from over cleaning your gun, but also lets you know that, hey, you've got to get this thing out here and you've got to get a good cleaning, right? The last thing I want to touch base on with the logbook here is cold bore clean shots, right? You should be documenting when you clean your rifle, when it was last cleaned, but as soon as you clean it, that is a missed opportunity for most shooters to see what their rifle will do from clean to 12 rounds. So I'm still going to do my cold bore shot and follow-up shot. So I'm going to do my cold bore shot at one bullseye, follow-up shot at another, see if they're in reference to each other, if they're hitting the same spot, right? Did my point of impact move with a cold bore clean shot? Is it way off? So for example, you clean your barrel and you go and test it at the range from your normal 0, and you find you're an inch low and left. That's a big deal. Next time you clean your gun, I'd be looking to see if it does the same thing. If it does, and this is your hunting rifle, I would not be going out and hunting with it being perfectly clean. So you look through your logbook, you got 200 rounds through it. Hey, I got to give this thing a good scrubbing. But then I'm going to go to the range and I'm going to put 10 or 12 rounds through it to get it fouled out a little bit so I don't have that inch low and left on the first crack of the gun. And also, this is another thing I learned, is a lot of guns don't like to shoot when they're clean. Now, we haven't seen this problem in a while. Mostly, I think, falls victim to factory guns. But I've had guns in the past where the first 10 rounds after it's been cleaned, it did not shoot real well. I mean, we're talking guns that were capable of shooting, inch groups at 300 yards that were barely holding an inch or worse at 100 till we got about 10, 12, 14 rounds through. And then all of a sudden, bang, it come right back to life again and it's starting to shoot. So there's a million reasons to use a logbook, and there's a lot of good information you need to keep in there, and it will keep you and your rifle running really, really well. So do something different than what most people do. Think about it as maybe your rifle's journal, per se. But if you really are serious about this and you love shooting, you should have a logbook for each and every rifle, and you should be keeping track of all this information, because it could save you a lot of misery and grief that you're going to go through with when problems pop up and you don't have any records or anything to look back through to see what's happening. So keep a logbook. Now, to tie this into something else I want to talk about is we are giving away a free logbook, of course. So if you log on to our Facebook page, it's Wolf Precision. So go over to our Facebook page, or just go over to our website and click on our Facebook tab there. If you follow us, like us, tag 3 people, you're in the running on February 14th. We're going to give away a free Wolf Precision logbook to whoever would be selected. It's a computer picked thing, so we'll have a computer pick from the numbers, and then we'll send you out a free logbook as our way of saying thanks for tuning in the podcast, as well as for liking and following us on Facebook. So make sure you register, stop over to Wolf Precision, follow us, like us, and tag 3 people, and you're in the running, and drawing will be on February 14th. All right, so for some quick updates before we get started, I do want to say a quick thank you to Krieger Barrels. Krieger is a sponsor of the show and maker of fine cut rifled barrels. They have a new program called KriegerDirect.com, where you can log on and order your barrel and have it in as little as 2 to 3 business days. So if you want the best and you need it now, stop over to KriegerDirect.com. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is a maker of fine chassis. They make chassis for all kinds of makes and models out there, including they have some new offerings like the HNT 26, the MDT ACC Elite, and the J. Allen. So we just got our first J. Allen here. Guys, this is one of my favorite chassis that I think I've ever shot, besides the Accuracy International, which, that goes back into the late 90s and the 2000s. But the J. Allen chassis, can't wait to do the video review. I hope it holds up to what the original was, but MDT bought the rights and re-released it. And just from the first go over of it here, pretty squared away. So if you want to upgrade your rifle, custom or otherwise, stop over to mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com, and check out their selection today. All right, before we wrap up this podcast, I do want to say some quick updates that we got going on here. Richard is off today. He will be in and probably joining us on the next podcast. So the first thing I would like to announce is that we have our Practical Tactical Shooters Challenge announced for August. And so for those that are alumni of the Long Range Shooting School and would like to attend, this is a 2-day match-like scenario where we're going to actually run you and your rifle through all of the paces that we can get you through. We're going to have you shooting in positions you never thought about, really challenging you and your equipment to the best. And we have 2 different ranges we'll be doing it at here in Somerset, PA. One of them has a 4-story tower. So limited to 12 shooters, 6 per instructor. So you're going to be spending one day at the range with 6 guys, and then you're going to switch and you're going to go to the other range for the other day with only 6 shooters. So it's a great way to test you and your rifle and your equipment. And this is meant for hunters and competitive shooters. So it's a great opportunity to come out, get some experience, enjoy a match type scenario, challenging you, your rifle, and your equipment, but without all the pressure of having 60, 80, 100 shooters there looking over your shoulder and not getting a couple minutes to practice some of the different stages after you've been put through the test with it. So that is live. You can register for it now. You can go over to Wolf Precision and see the details there. We'd also like to announce that we are getting ready in anticipation of moving our shop. And so we'll be moving into a new facility here in about 3 weeks. The transition is going to take us a couple months till we get there. One of the cool things is we're going to have a lot more room, have some more equipment. And then we're also going to have a bunkhouse. So for those that would like to come in and stay with us while you're attending one of our custom rifle building classes, or while you're attending our reloading classes, or while you're attending, for example, this is going to start in August. If you register for our Practical Tactical Shooters Challenge and you don't mind the drive from Johnstown to the range, you can stay right there with us at the facility. There'll be more details. And of course, we'll be doing some video walkthroughs and sharing with you all the really exciting news. So we're really excited. We're also going to be offering a lot more Cerakote options. So we're going to be offering and starting up what's considered Flood City Cerakote, which we're going to offer a lot of other services, including some general gunsmithing. So it's really exciting is that we do have a lot of customers that have factory rifles that haven't upgraded to custom yet. And so we'll be able to bring in their rifles and do some of the tricks and tips and things that we do to try to get the best out of the rifles for them until they're ready to upgrade. So just really exciting time for us, and the transition is happening now. So we've been working on this since right before Christmas, and just excited to finally get the keys to the new facility. We'll do a video walkthrough and share all that with you as well. We also had a request for a customer to open up a reloading class right in front of a long-range shooting school. That way they could fly in and do both back-to-back. So we did that at a customer's request. So we opened up a new school in August, a long-range shooting school, and bumped up in front of it is a 2-day reloading class. So if you're interested in attending our reloading class and then continuing on to our 3-day long-range shooting school. I believe one of the slots are already taken, but you can stop over to wolfprecision.net and register for that and get the opportunity to stay in our bunkhouse right there at our facility. So we'll have some pictures and more information as we keep moving along with that as well. So thank you, everybody, so much for all of your support through the years. Thank you for making the podcast all as it is. If you enjoy the podcast, you may leave a kind comment. We certainly do appreciate that. If you know people that are into long-range shooting and this type of stuff, you can share it with them. That means a lot to us here. And if you'd like to support the podcast, if you want to stop over to Patreon, it's Wolf Precision. And for $3 a month, you can support the podcast. We always appreciate that. I mean, it's a lot of work to set the studios up and all the equipment and time that we put into it. And we have a small group of, I guess we would call them the Wolf Pack. They signed up and they support the show at $3 a month. Thank you, everybody that does that. We certainly appreciate it. So to everybody out there listening, really excited. It's going to be a great 2023. Lots of really cool stuff to share and hopefully expanding and growing and bringing you in and letting you see all the cool stuff once we get everything running here. Certainly going to be a great year. Looking forward to it. Thank you to all out there who have made this possible. We really appreciate it. So my name is Jamie Dotson. I'm your host, and you are listening to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.